So we all know AI is totally shaking up how we build software, right? But there's this really interesting paradox at the heart of this whole revolution. And it's a surprising twist that pretty much challenges everything we thought we knew about the code that AI is writing.
All right, let's get right into it. AI is now writing almost half of all new code. That's a staggering amount. And the common thinking, the assumption, is that this code is probably fast, a little cheap, and maybe kind of disposable. But what if that's not the case at all? What if that assumption is completely, totally wrong?
So first, let's just wrap our heads around the sheer scale of this thing. A recent survey of developers found that a whopping 72% of them, the ones who've tried AI coding tools, are now using them every single day. This isn't just a shiny new toy anymore. It's a standard part of the toolkit, just like anything else.
And all that daily use, well, it's having a huge impact. Right now, developers are saying that 42% of all the new code they commit is AI-assisted. Now just let that sink in for a second, because back in 2023, that number was only 6%. We're talking about a truly exponential shift in how software actually gets built.
So with this massive adoption, this narrative starts to build up, right? It's this myth of effortless productivity. The promise is so simple, so seductive. Just use AI and you'll get more done way faster. But is it really that simple? Is that the whole story?
And, at first glance, the data seems to totally back this up. Developers are reporting these huge boosts in their own personal productivity. They're shipping code faster. It looks great. But the story starts to get a little more complicated when we look at the long-term health of the code. Just look at how that positive feeling plummets when you ask about technical debt. The mess you have to clean up later because you took a shortcut today. This, right here, is the first crack in that shiny myth of effortless productivity.
So why is that? Why the drop-off? Well, the reason for this breakdown is something the data calls the verification bottleneck. And it's exactly what it sounds like. It's this giant gap between the sheer amount of AI code being written and how much of that code developers actually truly trust. And this is the absolute core of the problem. Get this. Even though pretty much everyone is using these tools, almost no one fully trusts them. A mind-boggling 96% of developers admit they don't fully trust that the AI-generated code is actually correct. I mean, think about that. People are shipping code they don't believe is fully reliable. That creates a massive, massive burden to check everything.
And here's exactly why they feel that way. Over 60% of developers agree that AI often spits out code that looks totally correct, but just isn't reliable. It's fantastic at creating something that seems plausible. It looks right at a glance, but it can be hiding these sneaky little bugs and logic errors. It's deceptively correct.
And this leads to a completely counterintuitive result. You'd think it would save time on code reviews, right? Nope. A really significant number of developers, we're talking 38%, say that reviewing AI-generated code actually takes more effort than checking the work of their human teammates. So all that time you thought you saved on writing, it's just getting eaten up by verification.
Okay, so what's the big consequence of this trust gap? Well, it creates this really fascinating domino effect. It turns out AI isn't really eliminating all that frustrating grunt work, what developers call toil. It's just shifting it. It's changing its flavor.
See, the data shows that the total amount of time developers spend on this kind of frustrating work is staying pretty much the same. But what they're working on is changing. The old toil, digging through ancient, poorly documented code, that's being replaced by the new toil, managing, correcting, and flat out rewriting the mountains of code these new AI tools are pumping out.
So let's recap. We've got this huge wave of new code that developers don't really trust, and it's creating all this new kind of frustrating work. The logical conclusion, the obvious assumption, would be that this code must be pretty low quality, right? Just disposable stuff that gets written and then rewritten almost immediately. But this is where our story takes a really fascinating scientific twist.
So is all this new AI code just built to be thrown away? Is it just a temporary placeholder that's churned out and then quickly replaced? Well, a new academic study decided to find out. They actually tracked this stuff over time in real-world projects, and what they discovered was something nobody expected.
So using this really cool statistical method called survival analysis, it's the same kind of thing they use in medicine to track patient outcomes over time. The study found that this whole disposable code idea, it's just plain wrong. In fact, it's the exact opposite. Code written by an AI actually survives significantly longer than code written by a human. It's less likely to be changed, less likely to be deleted.
And the hard data is, well, it's kind of shocking. They used a metric called a hazard ratio, which is basically just a risk score for how likely something is to change. And they found that AI-generated code has a 16% lower risk of being modified compared to human-written code. Bottom line, it just sticks around longer.
But, and this is a really crucial but, there's some important nuance here. Okay, so the AI code lasts longer. We got that. But the reasons it gets changed are totally different. When human code gets modified, it's usually for what they call adaptive reasons. You know, updating it for a new system or adding a feature. But when AI code gets modified, it's much more likely to be for a corrective reason. And you know what that means? A bug fix.
So how on earth do we make sense of this paradox? We have this AI-generated code that developers don't fully trust, but it ends up sticking around for a really long time. The resolution, it seems, lies in a fundamental shift in what it even means to be a developer today.
It looks like the most valuable work a developer does is no longer just about cranking out code from a blank screen. It's shifting. Now, it's about prompting, guiding, and most importantly, verifying and validating everything the AI produces. The role is evolving from a pure creator to more of a critical curator.
And this isn't just a theory, it's reflected in what developers themselves are saying are the most critical skills for the future. The number one skill isn't about writing the most elegant algorithm anymore. No, it's about reviewing and validating AI-generated code. And right after that, it's about getting good at prompting the AI and being able to translate real-world problems into requirements that an AI can actually understand.
So, as we wrap this all up, here's the big takeaway. The AI revolution isn't about replacing developers. It's about changing what it means to be a great developer. The value is shifting away from the raw speed of creation and towards the quality of your judgment. The most valuable developers of tomorrow, they might not be the fastest coders. They're going to be the best critics. So the real question is, are you ready for that?